of horror. There's a contemporary problem in aesthetic philosophy, which is, why would you voluntarily subject yourself to the feelings of fear and disgust that comprise the horror genre? What's actually appealing about it?
I have less stance on that.
One can be because maybe they're an emotional sadomasochist. Like the sadomasochism of horror movies is very real. I can't talk about it, but me and my boyfriend went to see Terrifier 3, and it was the best movie out of the three, but it was the craziest. And definitely the most gore I've ever seen in theater ever in my life. Like, they really put it to town, and that's, I guess, like the thrill of being excited in a positive or negative way also adds to, like, the emotional sadomasochism of it all. Another way to break it down would be maybe that person's, been through some awful shit in their past, and they're using it as like an exposure therapy type situation. They're like, things are bad, but it could be worse, like this, especially like with rape revenge, like movie, like the themes, like people who have been through that assault can look at a movie and be like, I guess if you want to look at it that way, it could have been worse, which I don't really like that mindset, but I understand that mindset. And third of all, satiating bloodlust. Guys, can we lock in that everyone has a little bit of bloodlust? Can we just lock that in? Unless like people are like afraid of blood or something, like have like a phobia. There's like a little bit of bloodlust in it when you're like talking about like a horror movie enthusiast, of course, not everyone. But yeah, there's like that bloodlust about it. That's just like, it could also be, an outlet of like, maybe that person is inclined to real gore and real blood, and it would be way better if they watched a movie about it than doing it in real life. Or, people just like to see blood because we're human, and, blood is in us, and also it's in our psychology, but we're going to discuss a later part of that in the episode. It all ties back to the main subject at hand.
I mean, humans are kind of built to kill other humans, not they're saying like fundamentally, but we kind of did that for a long, long time. We've done that for longer than we've done pretty much anything else.
War endures.
And also, Cain and Abel. I love this analogy. Like, it's like, the first children of Adam and Eve, murdered each other. Mm-hmm. So, it's in our nature. You're either Cain or you're Abel, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say, why the thrill of horror movies is so fun, even like the painfully graphic stuff that makes you actually viscerally uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. To me, it satisfies a thing that you don't want to experience in reality.
Exactly.
But it's a thing humans are programmed pretty much to experience. We're meant to see very graphic things if you go back to having to, hunt, kill animals at like the origins, or even back when you had hand-to-hand combat, or not hand-to-hand combat, spear-to-shield combat war. Like, it was very violent, and even normal war. Mm. And so getting to experience that kind of thing through a movie, you get the sensation of surviving pretty much a battlefield, almost in my head. Mm. But you don't have the survivor's guilt left. You're like, these are fake characters. I don't need to feel bad about me making it through it. Mm-hmm. And so that's what it lets off the same things that are copiously suppressed on your day-to-day life. Mm-hmm. Plus, it gives an experience, like, if you're happy, if you get a lot of joy day to day and all that, like, what's watching a happy movie gonna do? Oh, more joy. No, if you have fun experiences and fun with your friends, then it's fun to watch a thing that's a bad experience. It's like a haunted house also.
Yeah.
Like, why are you going to a haunted house? It's more in-person bad experience. It's like scary. But you're doing it because then you get out and you're like, whoa, that was fun.
The dopamine rush just gives up the same thing. I think it's also just like a dopamine seeking activity as well. Watching horror movies and action movies and thriller. But that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's natural. But not to advocate for murder.
If you have to say that leading into a sentence, then...
Not to advocate for murder, but, I agree with Zach in saying in a way, we are built to, if not to kill, then to be killed.
Yeah.
So we're preparing for that inevitable,
It's like every creature is pretty much prepared for those two binaries. It's just our way of getting killed now is way more depressing and systematic. Like, instead of, hey, I'm going to fight you and we're going to see who wins this duel. Now the bank just, like, I'd rather get jumped by a lion than have the bank foreclose my house due to debts and then I slowly starve to death because I can't afford any living or I die from the cold or something because I can't afford to live anywhere. I'd rather take my chances in the wild with a lion and a spear than have to deal with the banking system if they're coming after you.
I want to propose also another theory as to why we intentionally subject ourselves to these feelings. I would argue that we are not biologically inclined to murder as much as we are biologically inclined to defense, right? Even when we are biologically murderous, when we're killing animals for sustenance, this is still survival. We're providing ourselves sustenance. So I think that, to say that humans are biologically ingrained to kill other human beings, I don't necessarily think that that's particularly the umbrella point. More along the lines of what Michael was saying, and you were also saying, exposure therapy, the fact that it sort of helps us regain a sense of control of these emotions that we don't feel all the time anyways, right? Our fear circuit isn't necessarily activated by the same things as it used to be before, right? We're not really exposed to many actual predators that we would die so horribly violently by, especially not in the United States, in this particular neck of the woods, in this circle, right? And so when we watch horror movies, then I almost think it's sort of a way that we have control over these things. We're almost preparing ourselves to feel these things, even subconsciously.
I have a theory that the entire world, specifically the Americas, would be better if we had velociraptors. If there were velociraptors and you had to worry about maybe a velociraptor is going to come jump me while I'm just in my backyard, we'd all think a little bit more about life and be more grounded. Because right now, the only thing that kills a human is either human stupidity or another human.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, yeah, that's just humans are the only thing that kills humans.
Violently, right? Yeah.
I mean, there are the outliers of, dude. Actually, no, that's human stupidity of getting jumped by a lion because you think you can approach it. It's no, just stop. There's nobody in any old times that would have approached a lion like that. Just chill.
Right. In a society that values keeping each other safe for the most part, right? Humans generally view killing other humans as not a super great, cool, fun thing to do. We're also at the top of the food chain, right? So, yes, stupidity and other humans.
Now, hearkening back to a few weeks ago, discussion on taste in music and in arts, there's kind of two reasons one would listen to music that have a lot of overlap, but broadly it's for emotional regulation, for putting yourself in a certain kind of mood, and the other one is for reflection, for discovering some sort of meaning. And if we can tie this in with the ideas of fear and disgust that you experience in horror movies, we can think about maybe a quadrant. I don't have a PowerPoint for this, but imagine in your head a square 2x2 grid.
You're lacking.
I know. I just thought of this now. It's off the dome, and I don't have any paper to draw it. So I'm sorry. Bad lecturer. Anyway, you've got fear and you've got disgust. And these are two distinct emotions that kind of come together in a lot of great horror. It's suspense. It's making you actually afraid of what's going to happen next. And then there's the other element of just seeing things that are off-putting. This is the gore. This is the... Terrifier is pretty heavy on the disgust rather than the fear. Which it's really great at disgust. There's few movies that surpass it. These two distinct emotions, there's two ways to approach it, which again overlap when you're watching a horror movie. There's the emotional roller coaster aspect where you're putting yourself in front of these images and it's just making you feel things that are not connected to reality. When you're on a roller coaster, there's not any actual risk of falling to your death.
Cap.
Well, very, very tiny risk. You're much more likely to get decapitated. Don't worry about it.
Great.
But it gives you the same gut-wrenching feeling of falling to your death when you go down the hill. Similarly, the horror movies, it puts you in front of images that you're primarily designed to be afraid of, be disgusted by. And then the other element, the self-reflection one, this is like sort of the Aristotelian idea of catharsis. You view something that's going to be off-putting in order to learn about what it means to feel emotions. It's like you would never know how you would feel when faced with a woman being sawed in half until you watch Terrifier.
True. Very true.
Some examples, I guess, are more realistic than others, but in general, it's confronting the limits of human emotion, of fear and disgust, and figuring out how you would respond to it.
Rounding back to exposure therapy, I guess. Like, I'm more inclined to think that it's almost like a good use of exposure therapy, because you really will never know the feeling of, seeing like a clown just, break someone's arm, gouge out their eye, split their head in half, start stabbing them, pour chlorine and salt on them.
I was gonna say the chlorine and salt is the icing on the cake.
You will never see that in real life. I for sure, I can bet you $100 anyone who's listening to this will never experience that in their life.
Don't you jinx
Hold
anybody.
up. We can change that.
If it happens to you, then I'll give you the money.
Yeah, send us a message on YouTube or something.
With the video link.
Get you in touch with Mikhael-Angelo.
If you're the 100th person to purchase our merchandise, we'll come to your town near you and let you experience this for yourself.
Flay you alive for
Ghost
the
Miami
audience.
Man.
Or if you want to nominate one of your friends and let them win the expansion pack, the merchandise.
That DLC, baby.
Yeah.
Abduction DLC.